Hello everyone. As part of series of video lectures on rock mechanics and static control, in this video I am going to cover um, the content which are part of chapter 5, and this is first part of fifth chapter. So before we start, let's recap what we had discussed in the previous videos lecture. In the previous video lecture, we had discussed about like different types of substances and their what you call the uh, uh, their profiles, how exactly the profile of different substances varies. And then we also discussed about the preventive measures of substance. Like preventive measures, again, it's it's been categorized, subdivided into two types. One is what are the preventive measures that we might need to take during mining operations, and uh, in case of abandoned mine. In both the cases, like what kind of preventive measures that we can that we can adopt or that we can take to prevent the amount of substance on the surface. Finally, in the last video, we also discussed about what are the different methods of measurement of substance on the surface. Like in this, right, uh, we discussed about both conventional as well as the latest technology that we can use, using which you can measure the amount of substance on the surface accurately. Like what are the surveying methods, right? In that. In surveying methods, like we discussed about how to carry out the leveling operation using total station and the GPS, and what are the information that what surveying information that we collect using surveying method. Okay, using survey method, we can measure the what you call the change in profile of the ground. So by taking that particular information, like and feed it to the and it has been fed as an input to the GIS system or any other what you call digital elevation model system, like which basically gives what you call the profile of the ground. So and apart from not only that, we also discussed about the advanced method of measurement of the amount of substance. It is basically like using remote sensing technique. In that, basically what you call differential integrated synthetic aperture radar. It's a kind of new technology, like in which what you call in which the remote sensing photographs or the remote sensing images of a particular area to be measured, area on which the substance has to be measured. Uh, those images are taken at a regular interval, and what you call by interpolating the what you call the images captured at various interval, and what you call by identifying the difference between those images, we can interpret like how exactly the kind of the deformation that might occur, that might have taken place due to the mining activity. So using this method, like it's a way of what you call a quite easy and less complicated and more accurate method, because it won't involve any kind of a manual comparison process. All our job is to capture what you call the remote sensing images of a particular area of study at a frequent interval, and by using more sophisticated methods, and what you call and based on the information captured, we can find out the what you call the change in profile of the ground. So this is what exactly we discussed in the last lecture. Next, let us move on. Okay, as part of this video lecture, these are the topics. These are all the topics I'm going to cover. One is the because in this one, right, basically in the chapter 5, because this is part 1 of chapter 5. In this, like we'll be measuring what are the what is the starter control measures that that we need to implement to carry out the safe and effective mining activity. So in order to control the starter effectively, we need to provide the support. So as part of this video lecture, I'll be covering the following topics. One is what is the purpose of supporting. So what exactly the basic purpose of supporting, or why we need to provide a support in underground mine. Then we'll discuss about the different classification of supporting system. Like here, the classification would be based on what you call whether the what you call the are we going to support the roof permanently, or what you call are we going to support the roof temporarily? Later on we can we'll take out the supports. Like soon after completion of the activity, we can take out the supports. Next, that is based on the what kind of supporting methodology we need to adopt. Based on that, the supports will be categorized. And the second one is based on the type of material that we need to use. Are we going to use the timber support, or are we going to use the what you call the chalks or caulks, or are we going to use what you call the iron or steel props, or no, whether we are going to use the hydraulic props, etc. Like what kind of material that we will be using to carry out the supporting. So based on that based on the different aspects into consideration, like we'll be discussing the classification of the supports. Then under the classification, again there are two types of supports. One is the rigid props, and we are going to discuss about the yield props also. Then we'll discuss what we call the load yield properties of rigid yield props. Then we'll move on to the types of props under the props, right? What kind of two types of props? One is timber and second one is steel or iron props. Next, what are the installation procedure for installation of wooden props under various mining conditions? Okay, this also we'll be discussing. I'll be covering as part of this video lecture. Next, I'll move on to the cog or chalk or chalkmate installation. Like these are all basically what we call the kind of support that will be used to support a larger excavated area. Okay. Next one, we'll be discussing what is the applicability of the above one. Finally, what we call the method of supporting the roadway junction. So these are the topics which I am going to cover as part of this video lecture. Okay, let us move on. So first, let us discuss what is the need of support. So why basically we need to provide a support. So in the underground mines, the supports are required or supports are used to prevent the separation between the layers of the strata, or that is bed separation basically. And they are also used for effective strata control. So this is very, very important what you call the concept. We need to understand, we need to have a very clear idea on this, as well as it is what you call it is also equally important from the examination point of view. So basically let me repeat it. What is basic purpose of supports in mining? So in underground mines, supports are used to prevent the separation between the layers of the strata, because due to mining activity, whatever the supports which were in equilibrium, so they got redistributed, right? So not that this we already discussed in the previous video lecture. Okay, if you still have any doubts, you can refer a previous video lecture to get more clarity on this. So like initially, what are the stresses before carrying out the mining activity? What are the stresses that were acting over the block of rock mass? They are in equilibrium. So soon after making the opening, whenever you made the opening, right? Soon after making the opening, the stresses get redistributed, but not the stresses are full extent. It won't get redistributed. Still, certain portion still will be acting on the excavated opening, and which will tries to close the opening. So whatever the remaining undistributed force, which will be still further acting on the opening, okay, that has to be counteracted. So otherwise, what happened, right? So there will be a what you call the corresponding lateral movement of the strata. So which results into the separation between the layers of the strata. It results into that separation. What are the separation that we will be getting due to lateral movement of the strata? Whenever soon after making the opening is known as bed separation. So if that beds, because our basic idea of providing the support is to avoid the bed separation between the layers of the strata. Okay. Otherwise, what happened, right? If we won't reduce the amount of the separation between the layers, which might lead to development of cracks in the upper layers, and which results into roof fall. So that's what exactly the basic purpose of providing the support. Next, coming to the classification of supporting systems. Okay, classification of supporting system. See, initially the supporting systems are being classified into the following two types based on the protective type supports. Like, are we going to use what we call protective? Are we going to use the protection for temporary purpose, or the up to certain period, or permanently? What kind of support we need to provide, or protective mechanism that we need to adapt? Whether what are the supporting system which I wanted to install in a particular mine or in a particular roadway? Like, is it going to be sustained, till the entire life of mine, or till the completion of certain portion of the mine, or up to certain extent, like up to for a short duration, and later on, like there is no need of any kind of support. So based on the criteria, like up to what duration we are going to support it. So the protective type of supports. See here, to give protection to the workings, these are all used. These are three types. One is called temporary supports. Second one is semi-permanent supports, and third one is permanent supports. Temporary support is nothing but, let's see, whenever I am carrying out some kind of, what you call the de-pillaring operation, nothing but the extraction of the pillars operation. Okay. So whatever the supports I use, I will be using only till the completion of that work. So once my job is done or my work is over, I can what you call withdraw those supports. So those kind of supports which might be used only for the certain short duration, they are known as temporary supports. Semi-permanent support. Semi-permanent support, nothing but suppose let's say there is a panel. It's not, like what you call the for short duration. Up to certain duration, let us say 1 year, 1.5 years, I might need to provide that particular location till the completion of the activity. Afterwards, I need to, what you call, since in that particular district or in that panel or in that particular panel, the extraction is completed. Still, what I will do, I can remove that particular those supports, right? So here the duration will be little more. So that's why these kind of supports are known as semi-permanent supports. Next, third category is the permanent supports. So third category is permanent supports. So in case of permanent supports, okay, these supports are used in a roadway, right? If the permanent supports are installed, is nothing but those roadways has to be maintained throughout the life of the mine. Or whatever the support that we need to install, they have to be sustained throughout the life of the mine, or they have to provide the support throughout the life of the mine. Those kind of supports are known as permanent support. So based on the protective type, the supporting systems are classified into three types. One is temporary, second one is semi-permanent, third one is permanent support. Next, what you call the preventive type support. Protective type supports. Second category is preventive type supports. So these are used to prevent roof collapse. Like temporarily, we need to provide it. Or it is something like, I made an opening. I wanted to, what are the cracks that are developed in the upper layers of the strata? Okay, I need to what you call drill a hole and put some kind of grouting material into it, and so that I can prevent the collapse of the roof, or I can what you call the avoid the, or I can control the what you call the disturbances in the upper layers of the strata, or what are the cracks that got developed, I can control them. So it's basically like grouting that particular portion where there is a chance of disturbance and which might likely to fail. Okay, so those kind of supports like what you call the grouting. These are all what you call the preventive, because before collapsing only we are making some kind of protective mechanism so that like we can prevent the collapse of the roof. Okay, so these are used to prevent the roof collapse. There are two types. One is called gunting. Second one is grouting material. Grouting is nothing but some cementy kind of material. So let's move on. Next, on the basis of first one is what, temporary or permanent, the protective type of supports. Next one is what, the preventive type supports. And next, the third category is on the basis of material of consumption. Supports are classified into okay, what type of material that we'll be using. Based on that, also the supports are classified. One is what you call the conventional supports. Under conventional supports, first one is wooden supports, precast concrete blocks, steel supports, concrete supports, masonry supports, nothing but the masonry work, reinforced RCC, reinforced concrete supports. So based on the type of metal that we'll be using to provide the support of a particular location in a mine, okay, these are all the different categories of supports type based on the material. Okay, next one, the suspension type of support, like what they call the support will be generally in case of the conventional one, right? They will be installed between the what called roof and the floor of the opening, right? So whereas in this case, like these are called the suspension kind of thing, like what you call, due to by studying the physical mechanical properties of the overlying strata, if let us say if the upper layers are very strong and immediate layers are very weak, so these weak layers can be attached to the what you call the strong layers. So this kind of activity is called suspension. So under the category of suspension type of supports, they are further categorized into three types. One is called steel boards or roof boards. Second one is wooden boards. Wooden boards are bamboo boards. Third one is stitching, nothing but roof stitching. Okay. Next one, on the basis of usage of supports. but like where exactly you wanted to use it. One is if the supports are used in shaft, they are categorized as shaft supports. They are used in the face or the roadway. Along the roadway, they are known as roadway supports. If the supports are used nearer to the face, they are known as face supports. Okay. Next one. Next, in case of vertical wider excavation, the supports are used to avoid the voids. Supports for wider excavation, and based on the usage, whether the vertical supports are going to use in case of shaft or in a roadway or nearer to the face, or in case of wider excavations are wide. So based on the usage, they are categorized into following types. Next one, based on the type of the material. Based on the type of the material. See here on the basis of construction, supports are classified as this one. Okay. Next, based on the type of material. Look at here. Classification of supports on the basis of the material used. Timber props, bars, chalks, timber, bolts, loggings, and wooden loggings, etc. Next, steel bars, arches, etc. Bamboos, cement, bricks, concrete, sand, and cylinder. So these kind of verticals based on the material used, they are categorized into the following types. Next one. Now coming to the props. Okay, the props are of two types. Okay, basically, if you look at what are the props that we'll be using, they are broadly categorized into two types. One is called rigid prop. One is called rigid prop, and the second one is called yield prop. Second one is called yield prop. Okay, so in case of rigid prop, if the load acting on the prop exceeds its maximum of its capacity, whatever the load that is acting on the prop, if it exceeds maximum of its capacity, it will fail without any yield. Nothing but what? In case of rigid or rigid prop, let us say the capacity of the prop is, let us say, some 10 tons or 20 tons. Okay, if the load exceeding that 10 tons, if it is, let's say 10 tons, if it is exceeding whatever the load acting on the prop, it exceeds the 10 tons, right? Without giving any warning, it will break, right? So that is nothing but they are called rigid props because they won't provide any kind of yield behavior. Yield behavior is nothing but what? The kind of behavior of the prop which without failing, it will continue carrying the same maximum load, but it won't fail. So that behavior is called yield behavior. So the props are this is very important from the examination point of view. The props are broadly categorized into two types. One is called yield props, rigid props. Second one is called yield props. So in case of rigid props, let's say if the load acting on the prop exceeds its maximum of its capacity, it will fail. It will fail without any yield behavior is known as rigid prop. Okay. So now what are the examples of rigid props? The examples of rigid props used in underground coal mines are steel props, wooden props, steel props and wooden props. Next, yield prop. If the load acting on the prop exceeds maximum of its capacity, okay, it starts yielding without failure because it will continue carrying the same load, but it won't fail. Okay, such a prop is known as yield prop. Examples of yield props used in underground coal mines are friction prop and hydraulic prop. So this this understanding of these definitions, as well as having a clear idea on what type of categorization of different types of props under these two categories. Okay, those are these concepts are very important, okay, from examination point of view. So what are the examples of yield prop used in underground coal mines? They are friction prop and hydraulic prop. Okay, let's move on. So let us study the load yield characteristics of rigid prop. So as I said, right, in case of rigid prop, what happens? So this is your starting point. Okay, load yield characteristics of rigid prop. Okay, in case of rigid props, okay, let us say here at the starting point, load yield characteristic, right? On x-axis, we have taken as what you call the yield, corresponding yield, and y-axis we have taken the corresponding load that is acting on it. So it started from initially, it started from here, this point, okay, this point, and till this point, till this point. So from this point to this point, okay. As the load increases, it continue carrying the load. Okay, it's also the yield behavior also keep on increasing because it won't fail. So this is the maximum load it has reached. So once this one, right, what happens? It breaks. Nothing but what? It suddenly releases the load acting on it due to its failure. That's why your curve is something like this because it has been really load has been released. Initially it was like this. Now it has reached this point. Right? So suddenly the load has been released from this point to this point. So this is nothing but it has been failed. So that is what exactly the load yield characteristics in case of yield prop. In case of rigid prop. Look at here. In case of rigid prop, it will not show any yield behavior. Yield behavior. If the load applied exceeds its maximum capacity, if the load applied, it won't show any kind of yield behavior, even if the load applied on the prop exceeds its maximum capacity. The load versus yield characteristic of rigid prop is drawn by taking the load on y-axis and the yield on x-axis. So the corresponding yield on x-axis or the deformation on the x-axis and the load applied on the y-axis. Okay. In the above diagram, initially the load will be applied gradually because there is a gradual increase in curve. Am I right? Look at this. There will be a gradual increase in curve. This portion. Right? It has been gradually increased with a uniform increase in curve from O to P up to this point. At P, let P be the maximum bearing capacity of the load rigid prop. This is the maximum capacity. So if the load acting on the prop exceeding this point, if it exceeds its capacity, it will fail without showing any yield behavior. So it will fail, right? Fail is nothing but suddenly whatever the load that was acting on the prop, it's get released. It's something like a stress relief. Okay, it has been failed and it has relieved from the load acting on it, right? So this is what is the sudden fall in the graph. So in the graph, PQ represents the failure load of the rigid prop. That's where it got. It is a maximum capacity. This one. So this curve basically represents the load yield characteristics of rigid prop. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. This next one we'll discuss about the load versus yield characteristics of hydraulic prop. Hydraulic prop is also the friction prop. They are all example of what you call yield props because they'll show the yield behavior. Look at here. As the load increases, the corresponding yield increases. Then when it reaches maximum of its capacity, am I right? When it reaches maximum of its capacity, so it is moving, increasing up to this point. Let's say P is the maximum capacity. When it exceeds this, earlier what happens in case of rigid prop, it got failed something like that, right? Now what happens in this case? In case of this one, it increases up to this, then it won't fail. It will continue carrying the same load without failure. This continue carrying the same load because it's a kind of straight line or the parallel line, right? Because the same load which is acting. So it is what is the maximum load it reach? It is continue carrying the same load and without failure. So that property is known as yield behavior. Okay, look at here. In case of yield prop, it will show the yield behavior if the load applied exceeds its maximum capacity without failure of the prop. So it will so if it exceeds its maximum capacity, what happens? It will continue carrying the load. It shows the yield behavior if the load applied exceeds its maximum capacity without failure of prop. So the load versus yield characteristic of yield prop is drawn by taking applied load on y-axis, okay, and yield on x-axis. So in the above diagram, initially the load will be applied gradually with a uniform increasing. Okay, see here the load versus yield curve in initial, right? It was what you call uniformly increasing 0 to O to A, O to P. So it increases gradually with a uniform increasing in the curve from O to P. Okay, let P be the maximum bearing capacity of yield prop. Okay. If it exceeds its capacity, so it will continue carrying the same load. Look at here, it's not come down. The green portion, if you look at, right, it is continue carrying the same load without failure. Okay, the graph of PQ represents the yield behavior of prop, and it continue carrying the same load. That's what it is. So this diagram basically represents the load yield characteristics of hydraulic prop or yield prop. It's also known as yield prop. Okay, this topic is very important from examination point of view. Next one, let us see here. This is very important. Some kind of logical conclusion that we can draw. The relation between setting load and yield load. So during operation of hydraulic prop, see here we'll set to the certain certain load. That load is known as setting load. Then as the today workings are at some location. Okay, and tomorrow or after after 1 week there is a lot of progression in the the development of the workings, mine work. So initially whatever the load that was acting on the prop, it exceeds, right, because the workings are moving further apart, they are moving a larger distance. So whatever the initial load it has been set, right, the load acting on the prop gradually it increases. So let us say the setting load at which the prop is being set is known as P. Okay, and as the workings are in progress, the load that is the maximum load that will be acting on the prop, that is the R at which it yields, it starts yielding. Let us say Y. Definitely, the yield load is more than the setting load, right? Suppose let's say in examination, if you are given, like, let us say the setting load of the prop is S. Let us say in this case I have used the term P. I have used the notation P. Let us say it is S, and the corresponding yield load is Y. So what is the relation now? Definitely the Y must be more than, or in this case, so P, right? In this case it is P. P is nothing but, let's say yield load is Y. Definitely the yield load Y must be more than the setting load P. Right? So this is what the relation we would expect, kind of answer that we would expect in the examination. Okay. Next, let's move on. The types of props used in supporting. Okay, the props used for supporting are of two types. One is what you call the wooden props, because in olden days, right, there are a lot of due to thick forest available, thick forest. Okay, near to the mining locations. Okay, the available there was plenty of wood that was available. So in those days, right, like in most of the mines, people started using abundantly the wood material for supporting purpose. But with the advancement of technology and in these days, right, okay, since that much wood is not available, okay, people started using the props which are made of steel or iron. Okay, so the props used for supporting are of two types. One is wooden prop. Second one is what? Iron props. Okay, so let us discuss what are the advantages of rigid props over timber. Okay, rigid steel props over timber. See here, generally a row of steel props offer uniform resistance if properly set. Okay, next, a steel prop has a greater ultimate strength than timber, because the strength of the steel prop is definitely it is more than the timber. So ultimate strength of the steel prop is more than the timber. Okay, next one is the recovery of steel props, because the steel prop is used in one location and I can take it and I can reuse it in some other location, right? So the recovery of steel props and the frequency of its reuse is greater. Okay, if it is buckled, nothing but it has under subjected some kind of bending. Okay, it can be straightened and reused, but A timber prop once broken cannot be reused except as lagging, because they will be used in some other places, but it cannot be used for supporting. So this is what the advantage of, because reusability is very important and the strength is more, right? And due to non-availability of the availability of the wood, definitely we would prefer the alternate option. Left or alternate option is what you call the steel props, right? So that's what it is. Okay. Next one, a steel prop does not deteriorate, because even in case of what you call water condition, it won't deteriorate to extent the timber does. Timber decays in a number of ways, particularly by dry rot. Okay, by dry rot, it is subject to some kind of deterioration. Next one, the steel props are incombustible, because whereas the wooden material is kind of combustible material. In case of any explosion occurs in the mine, or in case of any fires, okay, if I use the wooden props, right, they might catch fire. So that's what it is. So these are the advantages of rigid, steel props uh, over timber props. So let's move on. Next, disadvantage of steel joist props over wooden props. So, let me clear this. So, what are the disadvantages? Large props are difficult to tighten against the roof, because if I wanted to cut it, I can cut the roof. Whereas I can cut the timber, or I can flatten the surface of it, or I can make some kind of groove kind of thing shape, so that it exactly fit between the. I can easily tighten between the roof and the floor, right? So that kind of what you call the fitting arrangement I can make. But whereas in case of what you call steel props, is very difficult. So large props are difficult to tighten against the roof, and may therefore be knocked out. They will be completely released out of it, or they may fall down. A large number of man, because the way, if you look at, right, weight wise, the weight of the steel prop is much more than, comparatively more than the wooden prop. So a large number of manpower is required for handling the steel props. Next, wooden props give warning, because see, they are subject to some kind of bending, right? And it leads to fail. So, which is a what you call kind of what you call ample amount of warning. Okay, what might likely to occur in that particular location? Is there a roof fall that likely to occur, or what you call, does it require any kind of additional supports? So these kind of warnings that we will be getting, that we can predict, or that we will be getting out of by using what you call the wooden props. So wooden props gives warning of heavy weighting, which steel prop does not. Okay, a simple joist prop cannot be used in a seams of varying thickness, because generally the steel props will be having some constant thickness, vertical the length. Whereas if the vertical, if the roadway of size whose height varies, right, then it's very difficult to adjust. Whereas in case of wooden props, right, I can simply cut it, to the required size, and I can start using it. Okay, so that's what it is. A simple joist prop cannot be used in case in seams of varying thickness. Cutting a long prop and turning into flanges cannot be done at the site of erection. Cutting a vertical long steel prop, that cannot be done. Whereas in case of what you call wooden props, we can simply cut it and to the required size, and we can erect it at the field itself. So that's what exactly it is. Next, methods of setting prop under various mining conditions. So how to, so far what we discussed is the classification of different types of support systems. Then we discussed what is what you call the rigid prop and what is yield prop, and how exactly the load yield characteristic varies under for each category of the props. Okay, how exactly the load yield characteristics varies. Next we discussed about the what you call the categorization or the classification of the supporting system that used in mines based on the different criteria, like what you call the place of use, and the time elapsed, or up to what extent will be using, whether they are permanent nature, semi-permanent, or temporary purpose. Okay. Uh, Next one, the type of material that we will be using. Okay, and whether we are using what you call the prior to the starting of mining, where we wanted to prevent it or protect it. So what kind of strategies that we what you call we are going to adapt it, based on that we need to choose the corresponding supporting system. Now coming to the methods of what you call the setting prop under various mining conditions. Setting props. So a timber prop which can be erected in a mine to support the roof should yield slightly under roof weight. How can I make, here the question is, how can I make the what you call, as I said, right, the timber prop is of what you call rigid prop. So how can I make a timber prop, which a kind of what you call wooden prop? Let us say this is some kind of this one, right? And I have installed it between roof, floor, and roof. Let's say a flat surface. Okay, so this is one, and this is another one. Okay, so this is what it is. Now, how can I provide some kind of what you call yield behavior to this particular prop? So what we can do is, see here, if I flatten or the tamper the bottom portion of it like this, right? I'm cutting this one, right? I get some kind of this one. So if the load acting on this one exceeds maximum of its capacity, what it does, let's say, it's the load acting on it. It's if they exceed maximum capacity, what happens is, instead of failing, right? Instead of what you call sudden failure of this particular wooden prop, right? It will what you call penetrate into the floor. It will go inside. It will penetrate into the floor. So without failure, what happens now? It is going down, right? So that behavior is known as yield behavior. So similar kind of yield behavior you can provide in case of what you call the wooden props by tapering the what the bottom portion nearer to the floor, near to the floor of the prop, so that whenever the load acting on the prop exceeds its capacity, okay, it will what is the tapered portion that was there, it will penetrate into the floor. It will penetrate into the floor. So see here, the timber prop is set strongest when the load acts parallel to its length, because it's straight away parallel surface, like a straight by installed. So it can bear the maximum of its capacity. See here, a timber prop when erected in a mine to support the roof should yield slightly under roof weight. Next, the timber prop is strongest when the load acts parallel to its length. Okay, the prop is almost unyielding, but certain yield can be obtained. How we can obtain the yield behavior? Tapering it at the foot or top, either the bottom portion or top portion. Generally, the tapering will be carried out at the bottom portion. Next, providing a lid on the top. So what happens, right? If I provide a lid, right, what you call, there will be cracks will be developed in the lid itself before failure of this prop. So if there are any kind of cracks, so what are the lid I have used to tighten the prop against the roof, right? So if I use some lid, if the cracks are developed in the lid, that indicates what? The load acting on the prop is exceeding its capacity, which is a kind of some kind of yield behavior. So providing a lid, because yield is nothing but we need to get some kind of indication so that we can understand what exactly that might occur. Okay, after some amount of after some time. So that kind of, so that we can take what you call the proper precautions. So providing lid on top of prop as a compressible cushion between the roof and the end of the prop, so that what happens, what you call, in the event of excess of load acting, whatever the lid that was placed between the prop and the roof, right? It is cracks will be developed inside into the lid, uh, which will give enough warning. Like there is a possibility of what you call the yield. There is a possibility of failure of the prop. That's what it is. See, just clear all the drawing. Okay. See here, in flat seam, the prop erected is vertical, and in inclined seam, the axis of the prop should be. Look at this is very important. Okay? This is called underset prop. Underset is nothing but, let's say here, this is the vertical line. This is the corresponding normal line. Nothing but because this is inclined seam, right? The prop is play exactly. It has to be right vertical. Nothing but this is a kind of normal line. Nothing but the line which is perpendicular to the seam, that is called normal line. But have placed prop something like this. So during erection of prop, if a prop is what you call the placed or erected between the vertical line as well as the normal line of the prop, that type of prop is called underset prop, known as underset prop. This is very, very important from examination point of view. What is underset prop? So during what you call the erection of the prop, if a prop is placed, in case of incline seam, if the prop is placed, look at here. Here, this is one line. Right? Let me choose a different color. Okay. This is a normal line. Sorry, that was normal line. This is a kind of vertical line. So what are the angles that I will be getting? Because here the prop has to be installed between the normal and vertical line. See, this is a vertical line. Whereas this is the exactly the normal to the seam. This is a corresponding vertical line. Whatever the angle it makes, right? That is okay. And the prop has to be set between these two. See, it has been set like this. So this kind of installation of the erection of the prop is known as underset prop. Known as underset prop. So let's see. See, in flat seam, the prop is erected vertical in case if it is flat, and in inclined seam, the axis of prop should be normal to the dip of the seam, normal to the inclination. It should be like that. But the prop then offers the maximum resistance to the rope. If it is placed exactly normal to the seam in place of incline, it offers maximum resistance. A prop which is so set to its axis is between the vertical and normal. If the prop vertical is set in such a way that it lies between the vertical line and the normal to the seam is known as underset prop. This is very, very important. Underset prop. The erection of underset props is not common, and it is not possible for the timberman to judge whether it is underset or not, because he is a kind of practically he will go and he will keep on what you call the erecting the props, okay, based on the situation. But he might not be knowing like whether what are the prop he has said, it is of underset prop or not. Okay, but if the prop is erected between the vertical and normal, the line which is vertical perpendicular to the normal as well as the vertical line of the prop, okay, if it is present in between them, that kind of setting of the prop is known as underset prop. Okay, it is known as underset prop. Next one, the prop should be kept on solid floor, not on loose packing debris, except in case of emergency, because it has to carry the proper load. If the prop has to be set on a loose rock, a loose coal, or sand pack, it should be placed on a flat base, because we need to use some base kind of, we need to keep some base, and on top of it we need to particularly keep the prop. Flat base piece not less than 5 centimeters thickness, 25 centimeters wide, and 0.9 meters long. So these are the dimensions of the plate that we need to keep on the floor. So on top of it, we need to erect the prop, so that in case of loose soil or loose ground or sand, okay, it should not penetrate into the ground, because it is supposed to carry the load. So in such situations, we need some kind of what you call the lid kind of thing, or some kind of what you call the look at here, a prop has to be this one, and flat base. We need some kind of flat base, whose dimensions are not less than 5 centimeters thickness, 25 centimeters wide, and 0.9 meters. That's nothing but 90 centimeters long. Okay, so these are the dimensions of the base plate. Okay, let's see. Such a props and a loose coal or rock should be, however, be removed as early as possible and replaced by props erected on a solid floor. Because temporary, if you want it, you can erect it. But once generally, if you wanted for the props to be retained for the longer duration, okay, then it has to be definitely erected on a solid floor. After cleaning the loose, cleaning up loose rock or coal. If the floor is soft, the base plate or floor lid is as mentioned, right? Okay, and mentioned here is used to prevent the proper prop penetration into the floor. In coal mines, the floor is generally hard. Okay, a timber prop is erected to support the roof area. About how much area it covers, this is very, very important, guys. From a vertical entrance point of view, a timber prop is expected to support a roof area of about 0.4 meters to 1 meter all around. All around it covers 0.4 meters or 0.4 meters to 1 meter. The props are erected on a hard floor in seams of varying thickness as follows. So because seam thickness won't be varying, won't be uniform in all the cases, right? In various varying seam thicknesses, how exactly the props are going to be installed? Okay, that we'll discuss as part of this video. Let us see here with the prop, and in case of inclined seam, this is a prop, and this is a kind of lid which kept between the prop and this one, and this prop will be tightened. The prop will be tightened, okay, against the roof by using lid, right? By using what you call some kind of wedge. So this wedge will be placed and it will be hammered. It will be hammered in such a way that so that like it exactly fits. Okay, it exactly gets tightened against the roof. So that's what exactly it is. This is how the props will be erected on a hard floor. Okay, so let us discuss in case of seams of varying thicknesses, how exactly the installation of the prop is being carried out. So roof heights up to 2.5 meters. The prop is held upright in place where it is to be erected. A lid is placed on top of it. It should not be nailed, it should simply placed it. And a wedge is hammered between the lid and the prop. Okay, to tighten the leads against the roof and the floor. Okay, generally for this thickness, nothing but a height up to 2.5 meter, the lid and wedges are not used as two separate pieces. Okay, but lid is so made slightly tampered along the length. It serves for the purpose of wedge also. Okay, if there is any crack or slip which needs support, the lid should be placed across the crack or slip, because it has to, by using what you call a wedge, it can be what you call tightened. Next, lid. What is the purpose of lid? Now placing the lid, it is to what you call to carry the maximum, to distribute the load and to cover the maximum what you call the peripheral area or the surrounding area. So the lid serves to distribute the resistance of the prop over a slightly wider area than its cross section. So to prevent the penetration of the prop into the floor, into the roof, and to indicate the load on the prop, because if the load acting on the prop exceeds its capacity, definitely if I use the lid, right, there will be a development of some cracks in the lid, which gives an indication that the prop is subjected to failure, so that you can take the precautions. Okay, indicate the load and the prop. If it is helps easy withdrawal of the prop, because if I wanted to withdraw it, simply what you call the loosen the take out the wedge, and it gets loosened, it gets what you call the loosen, and so that you can easily take it out of the fixed position. So wedges are used to tighten the prop against the roof and floor, and lids and wedges should be of at least of same width as the diameter of the prop, and the minimum thickness of how much, 80 mm, and a length of 0.5 meters. That's what, 50 centimeters. Okay, or 0.5 meters. So minimum thickness is 80 mm, nothing but 8 centimeters, and the length of how much, 50 centimeters or 0.5 meters. So that's much. These must be the what you call the dimensions of the lid and wedge, because they must be having they should have what, the width same as that of the diameter of the prop. Because basically as I said, right, the lid will carry used what to distribute the resistance of the prop over a slightly wider area. So if generally it must be more than the dimension, must be more than the diameter of the prop. Next, roof heights of 2.5 to 4.5 meters. Okay, there are two methods. Okay, the position of the bottom end of the prop on the floor and corresponding to take place in the roof is supported by, marked by a plumb bob suspended by the bamboo. The prop is held because it is of maximum height, right? So how to erect this one? So we need to mark those points and then we need to erect the prop. The prop is held upright by 2 to 3 timber helpers. Okay, the timberman standing on the high stool or ladder places the lid and a wedge hammered on a position. Because someone has to climb the ladder up to and reach up to the position, then only he has to what you call hammer that so that it gets tightened against the roof. Okay, the above method requires a stool or ladder to be carried from the place to place for proper erection. The more convenient method is lid is attached to the prop by nails. The lid will be attached so that it won't slip out of it. And hole is made nearly 25 mm deep in the floor, because so that it won't slip out of it. So hole will be made and lid will be attached to the prop by nailing it. Okay, 25 mm deep in the floor where the bottom end of the prop is remain after erection. The prop laid on the floor with the bottom end in the hole. It is made upright and the hole preventing the prop because basically the hole is being used to prevent the prop from slipping. Next, the prop is held in position by timber helpers, and one timber helper levers up the bottom end by crowbar, bringing the lid in contact with the roof, and the wedge is then hammered between the prop and the floor to tighten the lid against the roof. So whatever the lid that was nailed to the top portion of this one, that will be vertical hammered so that it's get tightened. So that's what. Next, roof height above 4.5 meters. So the method, what you call in this one, whatever that we discussed earlier, used for roof heights beyond 4 is also the same method can be used, even in case of roof heights beyond 4.5 meter also. The lid is fixed to the prop by nails. The prop is raised upright in its position of erection by helpers, and with the help of the fork of type shown in, or by rope tied to the prop with a special knot, which releases the rope when pulled. Okay, the prop is tightened up because it has to be tightened, right? Instead of hammering, it will be pulled by tightening a rope kind of thing. Tightened up by the timberman by hammering and wedged at the bottom in the same manner as stated this one. Okay. Next, in inclined seams deeper than 1 in 5, it is usual to fit the foot of the prop into a stump hole because there will be a small hole that will be digged at the bottom so that it won't slip out of it won't slip out. So that's what it's again. So this is all the what you call the different methodology that will adapt to install the props for the erection of the props. Next, let us discuss what you call the installation of the props. So let us discuss how to install the wooden cog, chalk, or chalkmate. So what exactly the chalkmate? What exactly this one? So these are called some kind of sleepers. So it is something like. Let me draw a little small diagram of it. Let's say if I draw one portion. Like this, these are called the wooden crossbars. Next again on top of it again another layer. Like this, what in the crisscross manner, the vertical wooden logs are placed. Now here what happens, right? This is used to support larger area. So these are all called chalks or cog supports. So these are all used to support a larger area in a disturbed zone, in a very disturbed zone. Okay, in underground mines. So under those situations, we'll be using this kind of supporting system. Okay, if there are some gaps, right, those can be tightened by using some kind of wedge, by inserting what you call some kind of wedges and hammering them, so that what happens, it will be tightened against the. So this kind of supporting system is called uh, cog or chalk support. Basically, these are all used during deep layering operation and in highly disturbed zone, where there is a what the chance of what you call the roof fall or nearer to the junction. Okay, so where there is no movement of machinery, and because by setting up this, right, they will they will obstruct the movement of machinery. So where the locations where there is a what you call the where it requires to support the larger area and what the roadway is not is being used for the movement of machinery, in such a situation we'll be using what you call the chalk or cog support. Okay, let us move on. Let me clear this. Look at here. A chalk, cog, or chalkmate is a combination of sleepers. Okay, the one which I have drawn, right, 12 sleepers, one above another in a crisscross manner. It supports much larger stretch than a prop and is used in places where the roof is bad over a wide area and needs a substantial support. Cogs are erected where main roadways have to pass through area having pole pillars of inadequate size. The pillars of inadequate size, and lot of vertical overlying strata pressure is acting, and which leads to its failure of the crushing of the pillars. In such a situation, we will be using this. Generally, this kind of supporting system will be adapting during depillering operation. Okay, the term chalkmate is generally used in metal mines. Okay, chalk or chalk is being used in coal mines, and chalkmate is being used in metal mines. So Allah say the cogs are required under regulation at both edges. That's what it is. In case of deep pillar, okay, to support the roadways against the go edges, we'll be using cogs. Or at junctions or split galleries in deep pillaring areas, board and pillar work. And at a break of line, nothing but in case of diagonal line, right? Okay, break of line, there is a vertical likelihood of failure of the roof. Okay, nearer to the go edge, break of line at the go on long wall faces. So in these areas, we'll be using this kind of support. Only rectangular sleepers or alternately sleepers having their two opposite sides chopped flat should be used. Okay, next, this is very important. The minimum length of the sleepers of car to support the roof height up to 3 meters, maybe 1.2 meters length, but the roof height, if the roof height exceeds, okay, exceeds 3 meters, if they're more than 3 meters height, then the length of the the sleeper must be how much? 1.5 meters. So if it is less than 3 meters, the height of the roof to be supported, then the length of the sleeper is 1.2 meters. And if it is more than 3 meters, then the length of the sleeper required is of 1.5 meters. So this is about the diagram of the sleepers or the chalk. The sleeper should have a minimum roof at a height of maybe 3 meters, maybe of 1.2, but the floor height exceeds this same thing. The sleeper should have a minimum cross section of how much? This is the length, right? Depending on height, length is how much? Either it is 1.2 meters or 1.5 meters. When coming to the cross section, it is 100 mm by 100 mm. Next, the cock should not be normally erected on a loose floor or debris, but on a natural floor or but on a natural floor on a secure foundation. Okay, it has to be established on a natural floor or on a secure foundation. The flare area over which the cock is erected may be excavated to a depth of, because we need to remove some loose portion in case any loose partition present on the floor. Okay, we need to excavate up to certain extent so that we can find what is some solid the solid base. On top of it, we can erect the cock. So excavate up to a depth of 25 to 50 mm and should be made nearly flat in seams of mild inclination. Members of the cog are placed at right angles over the members immediately below in pace. Okay. Next, the chalk is tightened against the roof by hammering wedges into it at a convenient height. Okay. When withdrawing a chalk, withdrawal of such wedges, because we can simply take out the wedges which will loosen the entire setup so that you can take out all the sleepers, right? So when withdrawing a chalk or withdrawal of such wedge, loosen the chalk and the withdrawal of the sleepers becomes. Okay. Next, the chalk should be tight against the roof, and this may be tested by hammering for looseness at the uppermost sleepers. We need to hammer it, see like is there any the sleepers that is coming out of it. In some cases, chalk is erected in between four corner props. This is some kind of the special cases. Such corner props are generally not necessary, except where the roof is very bad, because four corners, four props, and in between the chalk. Okay, where the roof is very bad, at go edges or galleries, a junction of galleries, the floor is steeper than 1 in 5. In these cases, the four corners you need to establish you need to erect four corner props. Where corner props are erected, one sleeper of the chalk is always placed outside the prop, and withdrawal of the members helps this withdrawal of the member. One chalk is always placed outside, so that during withdrawal, right? If I take it out, I can take out the rest of the sleepers. Okay, so I'll stop it here. The remaining topics, I'll cover in the next video. Okay, thank you.